Yeah, so this is recording now, and I'd
Yes.
like to start with like introductions. I am Payal. I'm the chairperson for the Service Design Speaker Series for ISSIP. And at ISSIP, we are trying to start communications and collaborations between the industry and the academia. Uh, Also, cross culturally and across borders, we are trying to open up some avenues through the speaker series so people can have more conversations and hopefully collaborations as well. So today's topic is the highs and lows of introducing service design in a utility organization. And we have Carina and Erik with us, and Stefan as well. So I'll hand it over to you guys, and please introduce yourselves quickly and what you do, and then we can get started from there. Thank you so much.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Stefan, who are you?
So I'm Stefan Holmlid. I'm a professor of design at Linköpings University, and today I'm playing the part of asking the questions. So Carina and Erik, tell us a little about yourselves and your organizations.
Okay, if I should start then, my name is Carina Holm. I've been working for, traffic administration at the region Stockholm for about 9 years. And my main area, I'm working in strategic development with business development. And my main focus is brand management, and from 2 years now I've been working with traffic information as well.
And my name is Erik Widmark. I'm the co-founder of a Swedish service design company called Expedition Mondial. And I started my career some 14 years back working with service design. That's where I met Stefan Holmlid, amongst others. And then we have been working quite a lot with the public sector here in Sweden, and public transport is something we've been working with quite a bit as well. So that's how I know Carina. We've been working together on numerous projects, trying to figure out how to use service design within your field of work, basically.
Yeah.
So Carina, how have you been applying service design in this public transport sector?
I saw the introduction about me, and I was a bit like several years of deploying. Well, that's not exactly true, but we, as Erik said, we have been working with trying to start with what is service design, and of course starting where everyone else is starting, from customer journeys, to see the pain points as well as the highs we have. But last year we also worked with the service deployment process or the service development process, which we have started a bit to implement in our organization now.
So what do you think differs working with service design in a utility organization, I mean, compared to the private sector?
Well, from my perspective, I've been working quite a lot with both private and public sector. And of course, if you work with the private sector, their main target is usually to make more money or earn more or work more efficiently. And also in the private sector, quite often you already have your competitors. So you're kind of used to think in competitor mindsets, and therefore you might have built more of a forward-thinking, somewhat more innovative, or at least an organization that deals with changes and so on and so forth. Whereas when you work with public sector or utilities, I guess one thing is that the things you work with, you can't really afford to not succeed. Say if you work with public transport, you can't really gamble and come up with a crazy new innovative idea about how to transport people within a city. So I think because of that, like your type of organizations are maybe more, what do we call it, like managing what is rather than kind of building new and thinking in new terms. I don't know if you agree.
Oh, that was a really nice said, because I would say that since we're not revenue driven and we're coming from transportation, the transportation business instead of like the service business, the traveling business, we are working our way towards thinking of us as being in the travel industry. But service kind of the customer orientation is not well have not what do you call it?
It's not established.
No, within our organization. So that's a bit of a problem because coming from public sector, I've been or private sector, I've been working in the IT industry for like 17 years, and just having the revenue push is, well, you're being a lot more creative than being in a monopoly, of course, as well as not coming from like customer orientation side.
So, but do you mean that the customers are not non-existent, right? They're there. So would you say that customers expect less from you as a utility organization or more?
No, I would say that what we can see now is that people are expecting more from us as well. And we need to apply all the different kinds of aspects to it, like the digital transformation. It's a really big part in our sector to secure, because if we can't build a way or build the infrastructure so you won't have any disturbance, that won't be possible, more or less. So we need to secure that customer has the information at their fingertips or at their device, so they can help themselves or well, take another trip. So services, as well as we need to service design on one aspect, as well as adopting the customer life cycle aspects in our business.
And I think also like customers or people using public transport, you see the changes in other parts of your life. You can do your bank businesses in your phone. You can, I don't know, you can book a meal online on demand whenever you want to. And therefore you kind of are you bringing those aspects or those demands, or at least those criteria, and then you look at public transport to say, like, why can I do this here? Like I can do it with my bank, I can do it with all other services in my life, but not with public transport. So, and then I think another thing that is changing is that we've been working, for instance, with sustainable mobility for a region here in Sweden, and we've been listening to people, to their stories and how they reason, and try to understand, like, how can we make people firstly use the public transport more frequently, maybe park the car and take the bus or walk or cycle or something, and make this change, you know. And when people reason, they say, well, you know, when I was a kid, it was great. I lived in this village, and all of a sudden we had a bus line taking us to the next village. And of course, it was only twice a day, but we were really happy. Whereas now, like, you know, we have created lives where we expect more from our transport or our transport providers. So we need to kind of meet those demands so that people can live their busy lives. Like,
so I mean, is this these changes and whatever, both with the customer kind of mindset and, I mean, what you're talking about now is also the competition from other solutions then, Erik, like, well, of course, the car and the bicycle and whatever. I mean, what kind of role would service design play in that kind of transformation and development?
I would say that, well, one part of our responsibility is like planning the region from a traffic perspective, which means that we need to think of the city as a service, more or less. And how do we secure that people can well, use public transport for more travels on their part. So we need to secure that we can connect with like scooters, cycles that you can borrow in the city, pods like and autonomous cars, I don't know, in the future. So that's one perspective that we need to think of, as well as we need to think of the individual perspective from the customer. We must end looking at customers as a group, like one size fits all. We need to secure that Carina got what she needs, and we need to secure that our business models, as well as infrastructure setup, as well as how the city is built, connect to that.
and I think from a service design perspective, like for instance, working with sustainable mobility, I think we worked with the public transport organization within this region, and of course they think, you know, we have buses, we have trains, we have the regional buses and the local buses or whatever, so they're kind of geared to like, this is sustainable mobility, like if more people would use our services or go by bus, it would be much better for everyone. Whereas with a service design perspective, you can look at sustainable mobility from a human or a citizen's perspective and say, well, sustainable mobility can be cycling, it could be working from home, sustainable, like not traveling at all, really. Sustainable mobility in some parts of this region may never be taking the bus because it's not feasible. So then it would be, can we share a car instead of going one with in each car? So from a service design perspective, it could also be to kind of tie together from a citizen's perspective, what is sustainable mobility, for instance, and what does that mean to our business or our organization, or how we plan and execute our part of the mobility in the mobility system.
Yeah, Carina, you used the word the city as a service, and when I'm kind of trying to look at the city as a service, I'm more thinking the city as a platform for services, and then of course then collaboration becomes a really important piece. That, I mean, there is this city planning that needs to make room for a lot of different actors to be able to collaborate in creating those sustainable mobility solutions. Is that also part of what you see service design to be helping out with?
Yeah, and I would say that part is not so much that I've heard of, not from research part or from other areas. But we would need more help in concerning that perspective, to looking from a higher level on the region or the area which the public transport belongs to or work within. So I would say that or actually, I'd like to know more about what about the research fields are working with, like high-end service design or strategic service design, more or less.
Yeah, what do you say, Erik?
Well, I don't know. Well, we're high end, but no, but I keep coming back to this sustainable mobility project because it's quite recent and it's quite applicable to this. And yeah, you can't just tell people to take the bus because we've built lives around very comfortable, quite cheap individual transport, especially say in the Swedish countryside where you know, it's quite far in between each village or whatever. So you can't just ask people like just take the bus because there are no buses or not that many buses. And of course you could run more buses to every part of this region, but from a taxpayer's perspective it wouldn't be feasible either. So you have to kind of work on, I guess, lifestyle changes, and you have to change expectations and norms within society, and you can't solve it within one silo, say the public transport silo. You have to work with the schools, you have to work with the employers or the workplaces, you have to build new digital platforms for enabling maybe sharing a car or, I don't know, working from home, yeah, or whatever. So I mean, yeah, you really have to take this is the fun part, but also the very, very difficult part. Like to solve these issues, you have to take a very, very strategic perspective to start with, but then you have to follow it all the way down to actual execution. And, you know, how can we then make these two companies or stakeholders collaborate, or how can we facilitate people to make change in society so that we can live more sustainable or take buses more often or whatever it could be.
And probably law and regulations as well. And how can we like prioritize public transport in the cities? What does that mean for people as well? We can see it happening in other cities around the world, but are we ready for that here? And what about the transferring transportations just coming from a city or a city hub outside the city center in the region? We are not there yet from our perspective, but we are starting to think about how can we use public transport in a much better, smarter way, and to use secure that we have those commercial or private lines, vehicles, etc., and secure that people can take it, because it needs to be easy to take public transport. Because, and I would say that I'm not sure that our business models are quite updated for that perspective, just so you can take and you know that you always will get the best price, etc. So we have a lot to do there as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an old computer scientist from the 20th century, and of course, when you look at all those ideas about and ideals about autonomous vehicles in cities, I don't think anyone is really prepared with the business models, because all of that will be public transport or publicly policy-driven transport. So that is also something that will, whenever we have not mixed traffic, because we will have mixed traffic, right, for 40 years or something, unless the cities say that, well, we will not have anything but autonomous vehicles in the cities.
And that's
so that's also a big thing, of course. Who will support us with the utilities that becomes those public transport policies rather than just the public transport vehicles?
And then I think we have another challenge is that, at least in Sweden, we have these 4-year terms, political terms. So no one can really take everyone is working for their next term. So you have a kind of a 4-year cycle where you can do little bits and pieces, and then the last year you just have to secure that you don't make a mistake so that you might win the next term. So and a lot of these challenges or a lot of these issues, I guess, need a long-term plan and maybe sometime a political buy-in, or a political will to change something.
Yeah. So we're going to round off, and just the final question to both of you. So what do you wish from service design in the future? How does service design need to evolve in order to meet the future needs within the utility sectors?
Wow.
Oh, can you start?
Will I start? Well, I can just talk from my own perspective, and of course I work as a consultant, so but I can see that we're working more and more with maybe strategic questions. So we're maybe more designing strategies or policies, which is good, and it's great fun. But in order for these policies to become reality, you have to kind of connect the two. So you can't only design strategies if there are no one there to kind of implement them. And if you're only working with service design, as in designing services, the tangibles or whatever you're experiencing as a citizen, well, maybe you're not looking at the overall perspective all the time. So to kind of tie the two together, like to work strategically with service design and then connect it down to actual tangible changes in society. Hopefully we'll be able to do that somehow.
Yeah, well, from our perspective, I would say that we need tools. We need, of course, great consultants, but we need tools to make this journey by ourselves. For instance, today we have a lot of tools about administering, managing customer journeys. We know how to connect the business development phases to the customer journey and to our digital transformation in part, I would say. What I miss is how do we secure, or how do we implement governance or steering or leading process, as well as changing the overall culture, connecting service design with life cycle management and like revenue perspectives. Well, that would be great to have.
That would be Christmas commercial.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we leave to Payal and participants to ask questions.
Thank you, Erik and Carina, for this wonderful question answer series, and of course Stefan for facilitating it and asking them all these wonderful questions. We have one participant today, which is speaker. And if there are any questions, we'd love to hear that.
It was crystal clear, everything.
Yeah. So to your point, Erik, I really appreciate what you were just saying, which is so there are the design principles and methodologies and strategies are great, but and they're very helpful at the same time to come to to find really deep insights. But it's also very important to know how to implement them and in real situations and within companies by understanding the businesses. And that I think a lot of times, when we are so engrossed in really finding strategies as students, for students especially from their perspective, they don't see the implementation side as much. So that was a great point, I thought. Yeah.
And I think to scale service design, of course you could employ more service designers, but and that would be great, as long as you still hire consultants.
Yeah.
But maybe it is also to work in more of a designerly way within your organization. And maybe it's not necessarily working as a service designer per se, but to have more of a design mindset, so that everyone can do a little bit of design, and then maybe there will still be experts on service design or design thinking or whatever you want to call it, that you can call in to do certain things, so you can get coaching or whatever. But when it only stays at strategic parts and then very tangible parts, it will become more project based, I think, whereas you need to change the whole organization to think in a different way, and you said to change the culture.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I think the organization is a vital piece of the puzzle to create this. You cannot only employ more service designers, you have to kind of change the organization and the processes.
And the management thinking and business development, etc. So.
Yeah, that's a great point, Carina. And it's so important to have the employees kind of the organization imbibe the whole design culture. And that can only happen slowly and gradually, because non-designers, for them to kind of think about design in a different way with a different lens, can happen and will happen, I'm sure. But yes, we are all going to take one step a day and see how we can implement that.
Yeah. So maybe we need cultural designers, we need organizational designers, we need process designers to tie everything together.
Absolutely. Stefan, I think, has a question.
Yeah. So I was, you were saying before that these kinds of organizations, they are good at managing what they already have. So they're more, well, administrative in nature or whatever. So how does that fit together with the service innovation and service design and trying to figure out all these new ways of working rather than making the thing that you already do as good as possible?
Yeah, well, that's that's an issue actually, because first of all, we have seen it on the more tactical operational level, where we can change our services. That's more tangible and manageable for us. But now recently I've been also started to see that we need to look on service design from a city perspective or a regional level, and that's well, that's the cure. that's the more interesting and difficult part from our perspective. And I would say that we need both so service designers on a tactical, operational, but also on a strategic, high level perspective to help us with that.
I mean, within your sector, public transport, your lead times is often like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah,
say if you want to make a change, build a new train track to somewhere, or change the payment system, like you're often tied into really long contracts, or you need to think really, really far ahead.
Yeah.
And of course, no one knows, like, will we have self-driving cars? Will that be the norm in 15 years? Is it, and what is then the public transport role in that system? So both the tactical here and now, but also maybe the strategical, long term.
And I haven't seen, okay, I haven't Googled that much. I tried to read some literature I got from you, but I haven't seen that much tools from that perspective. So, well.
Yeah, thanks.
We got a question from Iker.
Yes.
From your point of view, how can we ensure that public organization develop service design capabilities and customer orientation? Well, I think we are working more and more with capacity building, or whatever it's called in English. Basically, like to work more embedded in the organizations of our clients or our customers, or whatever you call it, to try to help them to understand what are our ways of working with service design. I've been working as a consultancy for many years, and for a very long time I thought, well, the way we're working, that is the service design way, and everything else is not. So I was a bit proud and maybe a bit elitist. Whereas now, like, we're working for Ericsson, for instance, which is a Swedish, not a telecom company, but they build masts and equipment so that we can use our mobile phones, basically. And of course, that's a very engineer-driven organization, and they have their processes, they have their culture, their way of working. So, I mean, of course, we could have stepped in and said, this is service design, this is what you should do. But I think we are maybe a bit more humble now, and we try to find out each organization's unique prerequisites, and then try to design or adapt service design to their organization. So I think you kind of have to tailor the processes. And the same thing with you, like, you could probably not, or it wouldn't be fruitful for you to work the way we do as consultants, because you have a different type of environment and different co-workers, and you need to work then in a different way, but it's still maybe a service design approach.
Yeah, and I don't know if one part is that, well, I don't think that many public service organizations, etc., has or governmental has a CX officer in the steering group or management team, and that might, I don't know how you think about that being the lead going forward, implementing customer experience focus, customer orientations, or and service design possibilities
to kind of implement it in the management, or
so I don't know if that's the way forward, but I know that well, the private sector are working with that, and
yeah, maybe we have to prototype it.
Yes.
All right. Are we presented?
Sorry, I'm just waiting for this ambulance to pass from here. this is New York City and it's crazy all the time. We
It's
can't
very
escape the sound anywhere.
But we had a bit of the big city feeling here, so that was nice.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Carina, Erik, and Stefan. This was wonderful. We had a great time listening to you, and we hope to, get some of the learnings from this talk and try and implement them in our work life. So, thank you for sharing your insights.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks.
All the
Bye
best.
bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.